Hey y'all, welcome back to In the Wild. Welcome back to our summer series. Leah is back with me here. And today we're going to talk about a very fun but also important topic, which is belonging on campus. Because being a new student, there's so many emotions that are wrapped up in it. A lot of excitement, but also a lot of nerves and anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. I know I certainly experienced all of those being a first generation college student, being afraid to ask for help, thinking that I should know everything and not knowing exactly who to go to. So
For sure.
for this episode, I'm excited to talk to some folks who really help make folks not only feel like they can belong on campus, but also feel very successful.
Yeah, like the office, MSC is they do a lot of connectiveness, and everyone needs like that system of support, having those close-knit friends or just people they know they can reach out to get some help. Their office is really, really important, and it's really unique in that way as well. So really excited to hear from them, hear about their new events coming up and how they can help students succeed here at AU.
Yeah, and we also have Rebecca Berger, who is the Director for Testing and Stability Services, which some people may think, oh, it's just for accommodations, but their office does a lot more to make sure that students are successful. So we get to talk to both of these groups to learn about all the things and resources that they provide to make sure that you're successful. So I hope you're ready, because here we go. Welcome, Chantrier. Welcome back, Shireen, to In the Wild. Excited to have y'all here, even though, Shireen, once again, we won't be able to talk about Bravo for this podcast episode. One day we will. We'll make it happen. But yeah, we really wanted to talk to you both because I feel like you run or help oversee a really big part of campus, which is multicultural student engagement. But before we dive into that, I was curious if you could just share a little bit about your journey into multicultural student engagement and how you kind of became into the field of what you do.
Well, I guess I'll start. So I have been working in higher education for 7 years now, but I actually started my career in undergraduate admissions, and my first job at Augusta University was actually in admissions. But the thing that has been kind of like I would say value and focus has always been student access and student success. And for a long time I thought, okay, well, that's an admissions job. Like, how do we get students into college? But through my doctoral coursework, I started realizing, oh, there's other ways you can do that, which strangely did not pop into my head until then. It took a long time. And I started becoming really interested in multicultural affairs and belonging work on college campuses. And so as I was completing my doctorate, I made the transition over to multicultural student engagement here at AU. And I was the first assistant director in the office.
Whoop, whoop. And
I've just enjoyed it and loved it. And now I get the honor and the privilege to work with a great team and serve as the director in the office.
So I've only been in higher education student affairs work for 2 years. In college, I feel like I had the same story as all student affairs workers. Like, you meet your mentor, you get into student leadership, and you're like, wow, I actually really love the college lifestyle. And so I got heavy into my student leadership, and my mentor told me, Chantre, you're the happiest when you're working with students. And I was like, oh, I can make a career out of this? It's crazy. So then I got my master's at Iowa State, and in there I did multicultural programming through my graduate assistantship and just fell in love with doing that and supporting students from all backgrounds. And so when I was applying to schools, or I was applying to jobs everywhere, Georgia just happened to have the job that I loved the most, which is still doing multicultural programming. So I got here, and I have still every day woke up to have the passion to do this work and really just engage our students in their overall education and walking them through their engagement and just making sure that they're successful. So it's always been a passion project for me.
I feel like with y'all's office, there are often a lot of misconceptions put on to who you serve and why you serve. So could you go a little bit, I guess, in depth of what the purpose of your office and how you serve all students, because that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
In terms of belonging, of course.
For sure. I think we talk as practitioners, we talk a lot about being student-centered and talk about student success. And those are they're nice catchphrases for really big ideas that also have different contexts and have different meanings. Yeah. But I think for us and for Augusta University, student success is holistic. So it's not just am I making great grades? Am I graduating? Which is very important. I don't want to pretend like that's not very important. But it's also your emotional well-being. Do you feel like you belong on campus? Do you have a circle of people you can go to, faculty, staff, and your peers? And I think the way our office serves all students is we're making sure those spaces exist for everyone, while continuing to make sure this campus has that culture of inclusivity that we value so much at AU. So I think that's really it. Multicultural Student Affairs, Multicultural Student Engagement, specifically at AU, is about holistic student success and ensuring that all students are going to feel welcome and that they belong and that they can be successful here.
Yeah, I mean, the director said it best. I think on the basis level, what I like to tell our students is like, it is my goal always to be that space on campus for you to feel comfortable and feel like you have a home away from home, right? Like, I want to be your biggest advocate, your biggest cheerleader. And so I think for us, when we are supporting all of our students, it really is, how can I advocate for them inside the classroom, outside the classroom, while also giving them a space of support, cheering them on at their games, or cheering them on when they get, Student Leader of the Year. And so just making us as staff that level of support, but then also doing things that, like initiatives and programs that also show that belonging, community, and support as well.
So how can a new student get involved with your guys' office with MSC?
Wow, there's so many ways to get involved with MSC. I would say for like a first year freshman, the two like most straightforward ways that we email everyone about a lot. So if you're listening to this right now, first year freshman, check your email. But that is our mentorship program. So we have actually about to be 3, but we're going to talk about 2, the Multicultural Mentorship Program and the African American Male Initiative. They both provide first year support to students by pairing them with an upper level peer mentor. But outside of that, there's a ton of other student support services. So we meet with those students regularly to see how you're doing in class, how are you doing emotionally, how are you doing socially, what are goals you have that we can support. There's community building events, there's fun just things that we do to help enrich them like professionally and their identity development. And for both those programs, there is an application. We say application, it's a very fancy form that you fill out. But for a lot of students, that's us trying to get to know you so we can make sure we're pairing you with someone that you have something in common with, right? And for MMP, we're really looking at students who identify as underrepresented, and that's a lot of times students assume that's just race, but it's also if you're a first generation college student, are you a rural college student, are you a religious minority? Like there's so many different things, so it's a self-identification, but we also want to know like, what do you like to watch on TV? What is your career goal? Because like, again, if you're me and it's Real Housewives of Atlanta and I want to be a higher professional, then we're going to go find you an upper level student who has that in common with you, so you can really build, again, that from day one community.
Yeah, and I would also say that a lot of students think you can just, like, it's something that you join, like MSc is something that you join, but we really are just a center for students to hang out, study, do those kinds of things. So I think if a first year student, or any student really, is just looking for a space that they can either is quiet for them to study, or if they're just kind of like, I don't know anybody, but I want to be around other people, just stopping by our office and like hanging out. Like our students play Uno and Speed and be joking all the time, and it's just a really fun environment. So like just stopping by is probably the easiest way, but then also, like, I think a way to, like, baby step into it is just coming to the events that we throw. Our events are very open to everybody, and they do a great job of just, like, being really fun. Like our Culture Fest, which is just like a giant music festival, all those kinds of things, I think is a way to baby step into hanging out in our office or being a part of the programs and initiatives that we have. But definitely just showing by and stepping by our office. We're all super friendly.
Do you guys have events that are either in the works or already finished that new students in the fall come in that they can look forward to joining, or do you have events already set?
Yeah, so the first thing that's going to happen is house party. And we do house party at the beginning of every semester, and it's like an MSc open house. So if you're like, I want to go to the MSc Center, but I'm afraid to just walk in there on a random Monday or the first day of classes, which you shouldn't be, but you can just come to house party, and it's music, and it's games, and it's food, and it's a time to kind of see the center and see what we're all about. And house party is a Chantre invention, so I'm talking about it. I really feel like I need to give you your credit and your flowers, because it's a really cool way to get people in and see what we have to offer. But then Culture Fest is right after. Do you want to talk about Culture Fest? That'll be the first big thing.
I love Culture Fest.
It's really one of my favorite events. And so Culture Fest is just a ginormous festival where we have students who come out and like perform music, do spoken word, poetry slams, all that kind of stuff. We also have community orgs that come. So it's a great way for students to get engaged with like, what are some community organizations that are in Augusta that maybe you can volunteer at or have internships at, or all those kinds of things. And then we will also invite some of our student orgs to come. And I think that's just a great way for students to know what our organizations are there to get involved in those kinds of things. But then we just have like fun stuff like yard games and music and food trucks.
Loving the food.
We're hoping this year to do like a refurbishing of old t-shirts and like do tie-dyeing for those. And so it is just a really great time for students to experience kind of what events and programming look like here at Augusta University, but then just have a fun Saturday where they can hang out in the sun.
Like hang out sit on blankets.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of like festival merch this year as well that
really
we really
cute.
enjoyed.
Yeah.
And the cool thing, again, not that this is only for first year students, is it is happens in the field right next to OCall.
Yep.
So like if you're a first year student living on campus, it'd be kind of hard to avoid because it's loud.
We're gonna
Right
blast
there.
You're
you
gonna blast it out. You're
Yeah.
gonna smell food and be like, I can't stay inside. I need to come out.
Where's
and
everybody
see.
going?
Yeah. What is happening downstairs? So yeah, it's just a really fun, chill Saturday, but I think it's really engaging.
Yeah.
And I would say those are probably the first two events that students can really look forward to in the fall.
So, sorry, just one
go
another
ahead.
question is, you guys spoke about students, they should not be nervous to go to your guys' office and just kind of hang out. Where are you guys located?
So we are in the Jaguar Student Activity Center on the Somerville campus, second floor. It's room 209. There's a very large sign outside that says Multicultural Student Engagement. So if you walk by, sometimes people will walk by and see students honestly hanging out, playing games. The other day people were like playing Hangman and someone came in and said, "Are y'all in a meeting?" And it's like
no, we're playing Hangman.
Yeah.
But so because there's large tables and things in there, but like it's really again just a hangout place. There's music. Sometimes there's food in there. Kind of depends on the day, but yeah, second floor Jaguar Student Activity Center.
What would you say for students who may not immediately identify with like a minority, but still want to learn more from what your office can provide? What would you say to those students where it's like, hey, I don't necessarily automatically think that there's something for me with this office, but I know that's not true. So.
Yeah, very much not.
Yeah, I think first of all, like just like any on-campus event that's for all students, ours are as well. So it's not that I come to this just because I might have an underrepresented identity and I need to find community. I think the one thing about coming to college is that, and if I can reflect on my own experience, I felt like everyone knows what's going on but me, and I'm the only one who doesn't know, which was like simply untrue, and I only have that lens now that I'm much older. So it's like, in effect, coming to college, everyone is coming in, and it's not to say that everyone has a minoritized identity, but everyone's trying to find themselves, understand their identity, and build their identity as a young adult. And so I think in coming to our events, you're able to find people who have things in common with you, people who don't have things in common with you, which is the beauty of college, people from different towns and different backgrounds, and be able to do that in a low stakes environment, right? It's not come together because you have to find a friend today, but it's come together and see who you can meet, see what you can explore. And that's the whole purpose of college. So I would say if you're a student who thinks like, well, maybe MSc isn't the place for me, totally understand that. But knowing that like every single person is going through a self-reflection and a self-development when they come to college, and that is what MSc is for.
Yeah, and I would definitely say that like our center, even though you hear multicultural student engagement, and some students might feel like, okay, that's not the place for me. The center really is just a student hangout spot. Like, I mean, Shireen's office is in there, but like it really is a student space. And I would also say that for like our events, like she said, like the low stakes of like, you can just come into an event and it's not like we are hardcore being like, these are a million things about this one culture, or these are a million things about this group. It is really just the immersion into the experience. Like, for instance, we just had a PETA night market where we showcased a lot of the Asian culture here on campus, and it was super low stakes. Like, the students came in and like, go get henna done, or go learn how to, put on a hijab, or like, it is just a very low stake immersion into other experience that students might not get back at their hometowns or in their other friend groups. And so I would say one of the best things I had in college was like the immersion of experiences that I probably never would have gotten. And just to be able to learn about those kinds of things, I think is really great.
Like me personally, I think coming to Augusta University, like I'm not from Augusta. And I have friends who are from Loganville, who are from Alabama, who are just kind of from everywhere. But we all have different backgrounds and different ways we grew up. And so being able to meet other students who are not maybe from where I'm from over in Cumming, Georgia, kind of hang out and learn more about each other and different experiences, I think was really fun. And it's really educational, for sure.
Like every moment in college is educational. Sometimes you think about just
Yeah.
class, but it's not. Even just hanging out.
Yeah, I've learned so much stuff, whether it be academically or just socially, from coming here at AU and just meeting new people.
Yeah.
That I don't think I would have learned if I stayed home.
If you stayed in your bubble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because as you're mentioning that, like I'm one of those first generation rural students that grew up in the same house all 18 years of life. So coming to college was a big culture shock for me, just in general, to be around people that not only didn't look like me, but just had completely different perspectives on the world. And so I think what's really special about y'all's office is that you do bring in that cultural competency and immersion, like you mentioned, Chantria, of like, hey, this is a low stakes way to learn about a different culture without being put on the spot for not knowing something.
Yeah, I think the great thing about our office too is like we have a lot of students who are engaged in leadership opportunities. And so like you might just be stepping into our office just to find a cute space to hang out, but then you're getting immersed in like Greek life, because we have a bunch of students who are Greek life, or orientation leaders, or like people who are doing research. And so like, I like to say that we are a great touch point for any kind of experience. And so students who might be nervous to come into our office, just knowing that like you get a lot coming into our office, and like being able to utilize that resource, because we are a resource and that's why we're here.
And I know you guys have your MMP program and your AMI program. So if you are a new student and maybe you had like a rough first year and you weren't involved really with MSc or any of those programs, do they have the opportunity as like a second year or even older to join those programs, or are those, how does those work?
So for those programs, if you know, your first year was like, hey, I'm not sure about that, I'm just going to do my thing. That's totally okay. We understand. But the great thing about both of those programs is that mentorship aspect. And so like a student who maybe not have been a mentee can come back and be a mentor. We do application processes early spring into about the middle. And so students who are like, I'm now ready to get involved, I understand what I'm doing now, you can come back and still be a part of those programs as mentorship, which I think is one of the great aspects of both of those programs.
Agree.
Okay.
So I've been asking folks this question throughout the summer, but what would be your message to new students as well as their families who are visiting campus maybe for the first time this summer during orientation, to just about MSc and the work that y'all do in making students feel like they belong on campus?
So I started thinking of an answer, but then this is why I need to be a better active listener. My answer was really about the first part and not the second part. When you said about MSc, I was like, oh, this is going to be a different answer. But I would say one, like when it comes to MSc, but really just like the overall experience of college, not making that mistake I made where you assume you're the only person who doesn't know something. And then because of that, deciding that it's not okay to ask a question. I think I would have had so much of an easier first year transition than when I was in college if I had just like not been afraid of asking questions. And then I think finding your, and it doesn't have to be like a formalized peer mentor. Like we have amazing peer mentorship opportunities within and outside of our office, but finding your people that you know, like I can go to, right? That could be staff, that could be faculty. Sometimes it's like, well, I need to know someone in every office. You need to know one person who's willing to answer your questions and get you directed, and feeling safe to ask those questions. So I would think, especially for our students who are coming in who might feel a little bit of imposter syndrome about being in college. Maybe you're the first person, maybe you've gone across the state or across the country and you feel like I'm the only one who's a fish out of water. Like you are not. Even the person who's from Augusta, who grew up down the street from the school and dual enrolled here, comes on the first day feeling a little bit like a fish out of water, right? It's a different experience. So I would say to like acknowledge that maybe you feel a little awkward, and that's okay. Like you're allowed to feel that way, but knowing that it's you and the rest of the new class of students who feel that way, and it's okay to ask, and come ask us.
I think my tidbit on it would be like, the first step is always the hardest. Like especially if you're an introverted student, like walking into a center or going into an event or getting in charge or like being with a student organization, that first step is always the hardest. It's always the scariest. But then you quickly will realize that once you take that step, it just becomes so easy. Like it becomes comfortable. It becomes like almost like second nature. And so I would say that for those students, I understand like when you first get to college, there's so much thrown at you, so many events, so many things, join this, join that. And it can be very overwhelming. And so just making sure that you know that that first step is always the hardest. If it's too hard, grab a buddy, love a good buddy system. But then also like, don't be afraid for trial and error. Like if you try something, you're like, actually, I did that for 2 months and that was terrible. I don't want to do that again. That's okay. Like it is okay to have trial and error, especially with the understanding that like, your college time is like your adult developmental times. And so like you're really trying to figure out who are you, what works for you, what's comfortable, who are my friend groups, all of those kinds of things. And so I would say definitely that first step is the hardest. So understanding that, but then also like once you get there, it'll be easy, it'll be comfortable. And when it isn't easy or isn't comfortable, you have great staff members like us or students who can walk you through those steps as well.
Well, thanks y'all for coming to chat with me. I always feel so enlightened hearing the work that y'all do, because I think it's so special for our entire campus and our student body. But for those watching, stay tuned, because when we come back, we got another resource.
Hello, my name is Susan Davies, and I'm your Vice President for Enrollment and Student Affairs. I'm so delighted that I get to talk with you today about 4 to Finish. These are 4 aspects that we want you to incorporate into your life here at Augusta University in order to be successful. We feel like if you incorporate 4 to Finish, that you will be happier with your Augusta University experience and that you'll graduate on time. So what is 4 to Finish? Number 1, engage. engage. We want you to engage both inside and outside of the classroom. Join a club or organization, speak with your faculty member after class, engage in undergraduate research. Number 2, we want you to make purposeful choices. Make purposeful choices about how you spend your time, about your major, and even about who you study with. Make purposeful choices. 3 is to develop your academic mindset. We want you to come into college and to be a student here at Augusta University with a growth mindset, with a mindset that allows for you to learn from others and to bounce back easily from mistakes. And number 4 is to follow your program pathway. This means following your curriculum in order to graduate on time, but it also means thinking about what you want to incorporate into your academic program to make it even more holistic for you. That might include an internship or student leadership. When you graduate from Augusta University, we want you to graduate with your degree in one hand and a career plan in the other. And 4 to finish will get you there.
Welcome, Rebecca, to In the Wild. We're super excited to have you here. And I guess just to dive in, can you talk a little bit about how you got into, I guess, helping students with disabilities?
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. So I really started working with students with disabilities when I was in high school, when I got involved in the deaf community, and thought that was going to be a life path in terms of being an interpreter for people who are deaf. Life took different paths, and I got a different degree. And after my graduate program, which is in rehabilitation counseling, I knew I was going to work with people with disabilities. Thought I was going to go the medical route. And a position came open soon after I finished my degree at the Disability Services Office where I was previously, a previous institution. And as soon as I stepped into that role, I knew that working with college students with disabilities in higher education was exactly what I was meant to do. And so here I am, 20-some years later, and still doing it and loving it very much.
Oh, wow. What would you say has kept you into doing it for 20 years?
Working with students with disabilities, for one, is just, everyone is so unique anyways, but when you bring in the fact that people with disabilities, it's just every circumstance is so unique and all of their needs and wants and desires are so diverse. So it's working with a multitude of students, never knowing who's going to come in. And it's like a discovery investigation part of my job that's really fun. This is the person's limitations that they might have, and these are the goals that they'd like to achieve, the degree that they'd like to seek, and any limitations. Then we investigate and act as a detective as to how we can provide an accommodation to bridge that gap and provide equal access. And so every day is different, every student is different, and I'm also a strong believer in civil rights. Disability rights are human rights. And so this position allows me to strongly advocate and ensure people with disabilities do receive equal access.
Yeah. Can you tell us some of the services that Testing Disabilities, like you guys' office, do for students?
Sure. So one, we provide academic and physical accommodations. So we ensure students have classroom accommodations, things like note-taking assistance, preferential discussions with their professors, things that they might need to use in the classroom if they have medical concerns. They might have some flexibility with their attendance and assignments if their limitations require that. We have testing accommodations. So we have a testing center in both of our locations. We're located in the Greenblatt Library on the Health Sciences campus and in Galloway Hall here on the Somerville campus. And so students can register to take their exams, and they take it in a private room, usually with extended time or stop the clock breaks, and then sometimes they're allowed to use assistive devices like calculators or assistive technology. And then we also connect students to other resources. So the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Services is a free service to students that will support them while they're in school. So even sometimes helping them with tuition or other devices that they need while they're in school, in addition to helping them obtain documentation to determine eligibility. And then there's other resources such as the Workforce Recruitment Program, which is a federal program to provide internships for specifically college students with disabilities. So it's just exciting to not only help serve students on a day-to-day basis with what they need right now, but also planning for the future as to where they're going to go and how they're going to gain the skills they need to be there.
So for new students coming onto campus, especially those who are graduating from high school that may have like a 504 or an IEP, like what does that transition look like for them?
Sure. So the first part of the transition is for them to contact us and to be put in touch with us. And that's a big change because in coming through the K through 12 environment, the school system takes care of that. And often people think that it just transfers over. And so the big difference is that they do need to reach out and what's called self-identify and contact our office, which is why we try to be in as many spaces as possible for new students coming in so they are aware of our office. But then if they have that history through an IEP or a Section 504 plan that shows that and demonstrates they've had accommodations in the past, then we can look towards providing possibly provisional accommodations based on that history while we help steer them in a direction to obtain documentation that's going to allow permanent accommodations. So we never want, especially in a semester that's so important, your first semester, you're developing a grade point average, you're getting your feet, just your sea legs, so to speak. And so to provide a student who had accommodations all the way through K through 12 or for the latter part of it, and then to remove that, it's such an important part of the semester, I think can be very detrimental. So we want to make sure with, documentation that they've had accommodations in the past to continue those on a provisional basis and then steer them in the right direction to either the Regents Center for Learning Disabilities or vocational rehabilitation or private agencies where they can receive documentation.
So if a new student or any student is not sure they're eligible for any sort of accommodations, or they're just kind of like, I don't know where to start, I don't know who to ask, or they're nervous, how would you help them with that?
So really, we just want to have them have a conversation with us just so we can discuss what their concerns are. Why did they think something's going on? Or not why, really, what kind of difficulty they're having. And if we could help them in any way, what does that look like to them? Getting them to voice to us what concerns they're having, because I don't want to project what I think or what other students' experiences are on them. So first, to just have a conversation. They don't have to register with us or start a relationship with us, to just come ask us questions. I usually say that people don't walk in my door for no reason. So if something's going on, for them to come ask. There's lots of things that people might be dealing with on a regular basis that they don't realize qualifies for accommodations, or may not qualify for all the accommodations they're seeking, but then we can also put them in touch with resources that can help in other ways.
What steps or does the process look like to educating faculty and staff about, I guess, the latest when it comes to providing accommodations to students?
So we, that's a very important part of the process. And so we're every semester providing information to professors about specific students' needs. And then we work with faculty when they have questions. And we're increasing the number of departments that we're working one-on-one with to attend faculty meetings and deans and directors meetings to let everyone know the changes that are happening in our office and how they might serve students or things that they have questions about. There are some accommodations that are newer or that are being implemented more often or have some additional steps in ensuring that they're carried through that we want to be a support to faculty. So we always ask faculty to call us with any questions and that we can take it a step forward and act as a advocate or a bridge, a mediator in between them and the students, because it's not necessarily it's not always the student's 100% responsibility to carry that accommodation through, nor is it the faculty person's. It's all of us together. So I'm an important part of that process.
How would you say AU is accessible? So from an orientation side, I know we have alternative routes or different accessibility tools for students, but for a new student or any student who's here at AU or wanting to come, what are the ways that AU is accessible for them, or like different maybe from a different university, or what would make this school their school for them?
That's a very good question. So it really would come down to the person and what their needs are, what their interests are. Not every place is for every student, but the things that we can offer students are one-on-one services, and that we're going to connect with them and have them lead us in the direction that they want to go and be a support to them. We do offer testing centers, which not every university has, and it's a huge asset, not only for undergraduate students, but for graduate students. And then the other things that we provide are just one-on-one connections to other resources that might be available, things like assistive technology, and assistance with specific departments on campus, bridging that gap to them. And then we also have an openness with our students. So if they have a concern on campus, then they know that they can come to us and either report a facility concern or present an environment concern to us, and that we will take it a step forward and help advocate.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you mentioned earlier that your office doesn't just do the academic support, it's also physical support as well for folks on campus. So what does that process look like of, hey, this part of campus I feel like is not as accessible as it could be, or I'm having difficulty finding the accessible parts of campus? Like, how do you connect the dots for them?
Right. So the first thing is to have students tell us, because if they're encountering difficulty, we don't know. We don't use the routes they use. But for instance, if a door is too heavy for an individual, then we put in a request to facilities, and they've even done so much to go in and change the torque of the door so it's easier to open, or to insert a push button, to have an electronic door. And they will even do that for instance, there were some changes on health sciences where routes were moved due to construction, and the new route had accessibility concerns. So that's just an ongoing, I like to say a living thing organically that is just going to happen to where those things come up. Then we will address them where they are. We can't always fix things. Sometimes it's not possible to put in a ramp, or it's not possible to move something, and so we really do just find an alternative for them and take it case by case. And then it's important for us to take a look at where are the accessible entrances on various different buildings, and what is the route to get from one location to another, and then to review those things on a yearly basis, or more often if necessary, to address students' needs and concerns where they are. For instance, the lift in the Student Recreation Center. It took some time to bring that to fruition, but it was a huge need, and now truly makes the building accessible for students with mobility impairments.
Yeah, I was going to follow up with that. I was like, what is it like being able to work with different departments and employees to kind of ensure that accessibility is a priority here on campus?
I think it's exciting because it's an opportunity for me to explain to individuals where and why students may need some assistance, and it's also exciting to evoke that change. So to have students come to us with a difficulty and then be able to carry it forward so that we're able to make a change and a difference to how they can equally utilize things here at Augusta University. And just working with faculty is, I think, a nice part of the job. It's exciting to understand the different requirements in various programs and what students need to be doing, so that we can explore how we can accommodate those kinds of situations now and in the future. And it's important for faculty to understand that we highly value academic integrity, and I think that they appreciate that so much, that accommodations aren't minimizing what a person's requirements are, what the student must do to fulfill requirements. I think faculty appreciate that academic integrity is a priority.
Yeah.
So you'll be at, I want to say, all the orientation sessions this summer.
We will.
What would you say to a new student or their support person coming to orientation that may be a little anxious to say, like, hey, I had this accommodation in high school, or long before, I had a break between being a student and having life, I had this other, accommodation, but I don't know if I'll feel comfortable just, starting my new chapter with that. Like, what would you tell them?
I would say that to at least have that kind of discussion, and then, if they don't feel comfortable at that time, that's okay, but know that we're always there. And what I like to explain to students is that accommodations, although provide equal access, they are assistive. And so if a student is able to receive extra time on an exam, that will provide a benefit. And so if you're a student with a disability and you qualify for extra time on an exam, not utilizing that resource that's available to you is just not using all of the things that you can use to be successful. So, and I also let students know that just because they have that conversation with us, it doesn't force them into requesting accommodations. And even after they've requested accommodations, it doesn't force them into using those accommodations. They have, they're decision makers, and they have free will of the entire process, and that's an important part of that. And so I would just ask students to engage us in a conversation, and knowing that they're in the driver's seat and they only have to do what they feel comfortable doing, and that they can have a conversation with us and never talk to us again for 2 or 3 years, come back in, and we will welcome them with open arms as if they never left. And you know, we just want to, if they're here to see us, we're here to see them.
So they just need to reach out.
They just need to
Any
reach
questions?
out. Any questions. We'll meet with students virtually if they feel more comfortable. We'll meet with students in two locations. We take things at the speed that the students want to take them, because it's important to meet people where they are. And so and where they are in any part of the process, and let them know that the feelings that they're having, apprehension, concern, that most students have those, and students without disabilities have those same concerns. So if you're in accommodations, although only provide equal access, there are tools that students didn't put in their tool basket. And so, you know, once you have those tools, to not use them can be frustrating and really put you behind. I always say using an accommodation is like using a hammer to hammer in a nail, which just makes sense. But if you have a cognitive disability and you're using that hammer, you're not, or pounding in that nail, you're might have a shoe to do it rather than a hammer, right? Everybody else has a hammer because of your limitations, but you have is the equivalent of a shoe. Well, it's a lot easier to use a hammer than a shoe. And if an accommodation allows you to use a hammer, using a hammer is going to be more effective. You're going to feel better about your capabilities because you're going to be able to do as much, you know, what you can do to succeed. And it really just allows students to see that all the struggles they were having without accommodations, that accommodations don't make all the struggles go away. Accommodations don't eliminate their disability, but it, again, as I said over and over, it provides an equal playing field and gives them access as a student without a disability would have.
Yeah, like you said, like the whole point of us being here is to help them succeed. So
Right.
I think your office does has a big role in that.
Right. Well, it's helping them succeed, but it's also giving them the tools to learn how to succeed themselves. Because as I said, I can give them accommodations, but unless they actually use them, then it's not going to be of benefit. So it's an exploration and discovery process while they're here at the university to realize that using accommodations is beneficial. And if they are going to need accommodations past higher education, how can they learn to use those, request those in a way that they feel comfortable, in a way that they know what their rights are and what has to be provided to them.
Yeah.
So my last question before I let you go is that if you could go back and tell your freshman self something, just any bit of advice, what would it be?
I would say talk to your professors more often. That when you connect to them, they connect to you, and that's the way that you're going to really dive in and understand that information. And there'll be a resource when you have a question, and when you have a concern, they're going to know you more, and you'll have a better working relationship. The other thing that I would say is time management is of the essence.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not managing your time, then everything is insurmountable and it doesn't always feel like it's achievable. One of my favorite things to do with students is to sit down and do a time management schedule to get them to define when they're going to do things. And an important thing that we put on that time schedule is our social activities. To pretend that social activities are not going to happen is just a mistake. And I think that that's one thing that young students have difficulty with, is that they know they need to study, but they want to pretend when they're planning out their schedules that they're not going to have those social activities and that they're just going to study. But that, you know, if you're going to spend Thursday night doing something with friends, to pretend that you're going to study at 9 o'clock, it's just, you know, it's cheating yourself. So acknowledge when you're, you know, we want people to be social. It's healthy to engage and have a robust social life. It's part of our 8 dimensions, one of our 8 dimensions of well-being and wellness. But it's important to realize how to prioritize your time. So time management and making that connection with your faculty and your department.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us.
You're welcome.
I'm encouraging everybody, if you feel that you could benefit from reaching out to testing and disability services, don't hesitate. Rebecca will be, like I said, at orientation, all of the sessions this summer, but you can always find them in Galloway Hall and Greenblatt.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thanks again.
Yeah, thank
Welcome.
you.
It was a pleasure.
Well, I really enjoyed Chantrier, Shireen, and Rebecca for chatting with us today to talk about all of the things that they have going on in their respective areas, because like we mentioned before, you know, they play such a big part to our campus and to student success here.
Yes, I for sure am looking forward to that house party with MSC. But I am really grateful for all the things that they do here for students. And if anyone has questions, like, they will be at all the orientations. So please feel free to walk up to them, get to know them, meet them, and kind of see what they do for you and for other students, as well as parent and families as well.
Yeah, because they really are here for you, and even beyond orientation, if you feel like you ever need them or want to learn more about what they do or what they can do for you specifically, feel free to reach out. Because I always kick myself, because with testing and disability services, they also have placement exams, and I really should have took a placement exam for Spanish, because it could have saved me some time in some of my earlier Spanish classes, but I was too afraid at the time. But y'all don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. And if you like this episode, feel free to let us know, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Talk to us on Instagram. We both have Instagrams for New Jags, but also for the podcast. And we'll see y'all in the next one.
Go Jags.
Go Jags.